last time I checked, this is Friday. You know what that means? It means we're here with a live stream coming to you from the Huckabee Theater, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, which will be the scene of this weekend's Huckabee show. And if you don't watch it, you're going to miss what everybody's talking about next week when you go back to work, unless you don't work. And then you'll miss what everybody will still be talking about that you will never even know. It's going to be a fun show. You'll enjoy it a lot. Dr. Phil is going to be our guest, among several others. Pam Case joins me as she does on Fridays. Pam, good to see you, and ready for the weekend?
I am ready for the weekend, and you mentioned Dr. Phil. What a great opportunity. First time ever on the Huckabee Show to have both great talk show hosts sitting in one place. That's going to be fun.
Oh, really? There's another one that's going to be?
Somewhere backstage, we'll find them, whoever it is.
Whoever that guy is, I'd like
whoever
to meet
we're talking about.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
And, I avoid the opportunity to say, how's that working out for you?
Yeah, but it's in there. You wanted it to come out, right?
I wanted it to
You wanted it to come out.
So badly. Hey, if you're just joining us, be sure to send your questions in the chat. If you want more visibility, send us a super chat. We're so very glad that this is a participatory, got that word out, participatory experience, and we are live. So we got moderators watching the chat for your questions. Start getting them in right away. We're going to cover 3 big lies today. Oh, there are more than that, but these are just the 3 that we've singled out. Lie number 1, Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, his big lie about Joe Biden. Lie number 2, Karine Jean Pierre's big lie about the border. And lie number 3, Joe Biden and companies lie about their efforts to reopen schools. We'll tell you the truth and what really it is. Do we have a pre-show poll?
Well, that is the magic question here. Yes, we do, Governor.
Yes, we do.
It just rolled in. And here we go. If you were a Joe Biden, where would you spend most of your time? Okay, the basement of your home, the basement of Air Force One, the White House basement, or on vacation in the basement. So any thoughts about that, Gov, just for fun?
I would have picked the ice cream parlor. That's what I would have picked. I would have said
But in the basement, at the ice cream parlor.
In the basement of the ice cream parlor.
Well, here we go. On vacation in the basement, stole it this week. 55% of those voting today, several hundred participating. 55% followed by the basement of your home. 27%. I wonder if they mean the basement of our home. That's kind of scary. The basement of Air Force One, and was 8% in the White House basement at 10%.
I don't have a basement, which means Joe won't be hanging out at my house.
Right. Yeah. If we're all building any homes, no basements for anybody.
There's some crawl space. He's welcome to that if he'd like it, but I don't know if he wants to go down there. But anyway, I ain't going down there.
Thanks, everybody in the control room. Fun today with the pre-show poll.
Our favorite comment from last week's live stream comes from Judy Dean, who said, quote, I pray Trump will win again so we can get this country back on track. I certainly understand that and don't disagree with you. We have a question of the week for this week. Here it is. Do you think the country would fall apart if we only spent an additional 1% per year as proposed by the Republicans in the House? Leave your answers in the chat or the comment section below, because that's what they're proposing. Now, to hear the Democrats like Chuck Schumer tell it, if we were to pass the Republicans' debt ceiling bill, which would give us a debt ceiling, it's not really saving a lot of money, but it limits the new spending to 1% a year. Does the country collapse over that? You would think so, listening to Schumer and Biden. So what do you think? That's the question of the day. We'd love to get your responses, and we'll get to maybe some of them even during the course of the live stream. Now, before we get going, if you at any point find yourself enjoying this live stream, which would be from the very time we start throughout, subscribe to the channel. And here's the reason why. In spite of YouTube's efforts, we're almost at 1 million subscribers, which is just amazing. These aren't people that just watch. These are people who actually subscribe. We have a lot more people who watch who are not subscribers. In fact, 2 out of 3 watching are not subscribed. So the biggest number of people watching, not even subscribers. So here's what we'd love to do. We want to get there by tomorrow. It's very possible we're very close. When we get to 1 million, YouTube might even implode. Wouldn't that be fun? So if you haven't already subscribed, right now is the moment to do it. Let us hit 1 million subscribers before the weekend. which would be absolutely wonderful.
Fantastic.
Wonderful indeed. We have a lot of stuff going on this week that we're going to try to cover as much as we can, some really fun videos to see. But the first story we want to talk about is a story that is brewing. It could be the biggest story to come out of Washington since Watergate. That sounds like an exaggeration. This story would actually be much bigger than Watergate because there is a whistleblower, and you have a couple of very credible members of Congress, James Comer of Kentucky in the House, Charles Grassley of Iowa in the Senate. Neither of these are bomb throwers. These are not people that just see what they can throw out there and make everybody go crazy. Right. These are very thoughtful, studious people. And they have interviewed a whistleblower who claims to have documentation that when Joe Biden was vice president, there was actual bribery that took place where money was offered and received for influence on U.S. policies. It just doesn't get bigger than that, especially when that vice president is now the sitting president. So we're going to be looking at that. You saw the graphic there on your screen with the background of that story. You can imagine that the White House and anyone near it doesn't want to say anything about it. This week, John Kirby, one of the White House voices, was asked about it, and his answer, listen carefully, because he doesn't deny it. He just says he doesn't have anything to say. Watch.
John, I've got a question about House Oversight Committee subpoena that was issued yesterday. It's seeking an FBI document from 2020 that, quote, describes an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. What's the White House's response to this serious corruption allegation?
I'm going to have to refer you to the Justice Department on that. I have nothing for you on that today.
No. Do you know what this is? What country this pertains to, or what policy decision?
I have nothing for you, sir. I'm going to have to refer you to the Justice Department, and I'm getting the hook. See ya.
I love that. I'm getting the hook. Boy, I bet he was so glad. Somebody ran out from the offices and said, get him off the stage, get him off the stage. Because they were asking a question that nobody in that White House wants to touch.
Right.
And his first thing was, just go talk to the Department of Justice. He says, I have nothing for you. Didn't say he didn't have anything. Didn't say he didn't know anything. He doesn't have anything for them. Now, I know I'm reading into that, but I'm telling you, there's stuff brewing. I don't know if it'll come out. I just don't know, because Washington is a crazy place. And even if the facts fall down on the floor in front of the reporters, I'm not sure that there are enough decent, honest reporters with integrity left in that city that would actually cover a story that would cause this particular administration to implode. But we shall see. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas is really for me, one of the most disgusting people in Washington. I want to scream every time I see him talk, because he's smug, he's arrogant, and the things that he has done to the people under him, particularly when he really just was willing to hang out to dry the people that work for him in the Border Patrol, in the so-called horse whipping incident. And he knew at the time that he said, we're going to get into this, we're going to punish those people. He knew that they had followed the procedure they were supposed to follow, and there was no misdeed on their part. And later documents prove that. But he went to pound his chest and to go along with the narrative, which was these terrible people down there that work for the Department of Border Security. So that just irritated me. This week, I just think it's fascinating. This is an interview with Sleepy Chuck. That's Donald Trump's nickname for him, and that's one of the nicer ones that he could give Chuck Todd, who I have very little use for. But Chuck Todd is asking him about President Biden. Is he ready for a second term? I want you to watch.
There's a lot of questions about President Biden and his ability to serve in a second term. You see him up close, face to face. What say you? Is he up for a second term?
Oh, Chuck, 100%. Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing, incredible command of the details, probing on the details, asking tough questions.
The only thing I've seen him really be probing on is probing little girls' hair when he sniffs at them when they come up for a ceremony. I mean, but this was, I mean, it was pretty hard for me to take that as a legitimate answer. Incredibly sharp. Oh, he's very probing. He has great command. All right, I want you to watch these clips. We're just going to play a couple of them in order. And you tell me if this shows someone who is absolutely in command, crisp and clear, with probing questions.
Anyway, the one thing I thought when I got to be president, I get to give orders. But I take more orders than I ever did, and you're right, Dave. What's your name so far? So I'm trying to think, where was the last place I was? It's hard to keep track. I mean, yeah, you're right, Ireland. That's where it was. How'd you know that? When we look back years from now, we'll know whether we met this moment. You know, so you gotta let me tell you something, because that's so important. Because all of you, we will meet this moment because of you.
What's really interesting about the last one is that's a teleprompter moment. He's reading that and he's still struggling with it. But when he didn't know the answer to the question, where did you travel most recently? And he doesn't remember. He just got back from Ireland. And when he was there, he said, this is the greatest trip of my life. I don't want to leave. We were all saying, hey, fine, stay in Ireland. We'll send, you know, your stuff over to you.
And Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter went with him, of course. How do you not remember that you just got back from a place you said it was your, like, the homeland of your ancestry and the place that you so connected to and had such a great time in, and you get back and a week later, you don't remember that you were there. And a 5-year-old has to tell you, you were in Ireland, Mr. President. Thank you, kiddo. I wouldn't have known had you not been here. When a 5-year-old knows something about what the president does and he doesn't, it's just a little bit on the uncomfortable side.
Well, I know years from now, I'm not sure we'll want to look back either.
Yeah, no kidding.
We don't want to do that either.
Well, we said we were going to deal with some of the big lies. This is one that came out of the White House. And this is disturbing because we were all just heartbroken about the shooting in Cleveland, Texas, outside of Houston, where a gentleman was firing a gun in the neighborhood. And the neighbors said, look, our kids are trying to sleep. Can you just stop firing a gun? I mean, that shouldn't be a big ask. Instead of saying, oh, yeah, let me do that, he went into the home next door and shot 5 people, including an 8-year-old whose mothers were laying on top of him to try to protect. Just a horrific shooting. Now, you would think you'd want to know, okay, let's find out about this shooter. Tell me about him. But the White House, once they realized this guy had been deported 4 times, and kept coming back into the country, never mentioned that he was an illegal who had been deported, kept coming back. Watch what they make it all about. You probably won't be surprised.
On Friday evening, a 9-year-old child was murdered along with 4 others in yet another shocking, horrific act of gun violence in America, this time in Cleveland, Texas. 2 of the women killed were discovered on top of surviving children and appeared to be shielding them from gunfire. In all, 5 people were murdered by an individual armed with a powerful AR-15 style rifle. The president believes prayers alone are not enough. Congress must act.
Yeah, Congress might act. Why don't you deport the people permanently who do this stuff? 4 times this guy, and he's got a long list of felony assault charges. And so how come he's still here? You know, she's blaming an AR-15, an inanimate object, rather than the person who squeezed the trigger and repeatedly killed in cold blood a family of people. Never mentions that the administration is in a large way responsible because they will not enforce the immigration laws that are already on the books. This person should never have been in this country, not once, but he kept getting thrown out and walked right back in after 4 deportations.
It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Governor Abbott of Texas said the gunman had been deported. He was back in Texas illegally. Also, this guy's wife had filed a protective order against him last year, alleging that he beat her. He reportedly was drunk and hit her with a closed fist, kicked her on the floor, and threatened her. And yet, none of that was ever mentioned by Karine Jean Pierre. It just makes it like it's no big deal. So immigration is a big deal to most everybody in this country because we know that's how human trafficking and fentanyl is taking place. But they're living in fantasy land at the White House. Here's Karine Jean Pierre making up a figure out of thin air about what a great job the Biden administration has done with the illegals.
And that's why you've seen the parolee program be so successful. When it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%, and that's because of the actions that the president has taken.
It has not come down 90%. We are at an all-time high, 2.4 million in 2022. We've never had numbers that high, 136,000 more than the year before, which was an all-time high. And so Peter Doocy from Fox News questioned the following day, Karine Jean Pierre, about this figure. Where did she get this idea that 90% reduction in illegal immigrants? Watch this exchange.
Today, that when it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%. Where did that number come from? Because CBP is telling us the number is.
I hear you. I'm about to answer.
136,000 people more.
I'm about to answer you.
Year so far.
If the dramatics could come down just a little bit. If the dramatics could come down a little bit.
What's dramatic about asking a question about?
Okay, I'm going to answer. So I was speaking to the parolee program. As you know, the president put in place a parolee program to deal with certain countries on ways that we can limit illegal migration, and we have seen the data has shown us that it has gone down by more than 90%.
What an arrogant and absolutely untrue answer. We saw the clip where she said, she talked about this parole program, then she pivoted and she said immigration numbers are down 90%. That's what she said. He calls her on it. She goes into a little tiz and tells him to keep the dramatics down.
He was simply asking a question.
Yeah, that's his job. And it's her job to give a better answer than to stonewall and to lie, to stand there and just tell a big one, which is exactly what she did. It's bad when MSNBC, of all people, are now reporting just how much of a crisis we have at the border. Watch.
They're already at capacity in their shelters here in these processing centers, but it's expected to get far beyond that. In fact, we have heard estimates north of 10,000 migrants crossing per day.
Now, just remember, Secretary Mayorkas says the border is closed. Don't worry, Kamala Harris is in charge of the border. She's done a heck of a job down there taking care of that. Thank you so much, Vice President. Let's take a couple of questions, and we've got some more great stories to cover.
Absolutely. We're going to start with the super chat from Dwayne Booth. Thank you, Dwayne, for your participation today. Here's his question. Why don't they just impeach the executive branch and replace them with a constitutional government?
Well, it's an interesting idea. You cannot impeach a group of people all at one time. You have to have individual charges. They go to the House for basically what amounts to an indictment, and then it's tried in the Senate. It would be a pretty difficult process. Now, speaking rhetorically, I love what Dwayne thinks. Mm-hmm. Just get rid of them all at one time. Right. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Okay, so I know this is referring to KJP. She blinks like she's sending Morse code, a sign of lying. That's from Laura Buckles today.
Oh, Laura, I think you're on to something. I won't even argue with you.
All right, so we have to ask Joshua Montgomery. Total personal question: is Mike's eye okay? Of course, you know we all know about a little accident you had a couple of weeks ago while hunting.
Yes, got scoped with a 12-gauge shotgun while turkey hunting in West Texas. Actually, it's the best it's looked in.
Yeah, it looks fantastic to me, but we all saw it the other way.
Well, most people haven't seen it on TV because we have a very good makeup artist who covers it up nicely. Yes. In fact, so well that when my wife was traveling, and she saw the first show. She said, "Oh, your eye looks like it's healed up." I said, "No, not quite." And I sent her a picture without the makeup, and she says, "Oh my gosh." She said, "Okay, yeah, it's fine."
So
it just looks awful.
All right, so here we go. In regards to the FBI's whistleblowers document, we talked about this earlier, alleging a bribery scheme, including Joe Biden. Do you think they may classify the unclassified document?
Interesting, because it is an unclassified document that they're looking at from this whistleblower, which means that it can't be hidden under the guise of, hey, it's classified, we can't release it. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, because we've got that many people in the intelligence community who would do anything, not just to cover Joe Biden's tracks, but quite frankly, to cover their own, because there's some culpability within the FBI and the Justice Department and the CIA and other intelligence apparatus as to how they've been propping this president up and lying to us about the relationship that he has with Chinese business interests.
Let's see.
All right.
Purple Haze is asking, too, can't the FBI destroy the document and say they never had it, the one that Grassley seeks?
They could, but they run the risk that there's somebody left in the building who knows that it's there, who would find that so appalling that they would blow the whistle. So let's hope. We know there's deep corruption in the deep state. Let's hope it's not so bad that there aren't a few people left who would scream bloody murder over that kind of thing. Most of us are aware of the fact that schools got closed because of COVID, and as a result, millions of children across the country really lost more than a year, not just of their education, but really of their lives. And many of them didn't get to have a prom, they didn't get to have senior football. You know, they lost a lot, not just the classroom, but they clearly lost in the classroom, and some of them will never get it back. One of the reasons schools stayed closed so long was because of the teachers' unions who demanded that they stay closed. Recently, Randi Weingarten from the American Federation of Teachers, one of the most powerful teachers' unions in the country, has now reinvented her own position to say, oh, we tried so hard to get the schools open. So I want you to listen to Randi Weingarten speaking before Congress and pretending that she really wanted schools open. Watch.
I'm sorry, Congressman Raskin. We spent every day from February on trying to get schools open. We knew that remote education was not a substitute for opening schools, but we also knew that people had to be safe.
Okay, so her position, we were trying so hard to get those schools open. Hey, well, you just don't understand how hard we tried. That is a lie. They tried to keep the schools closed and put pressure on schools and the government not to reopen. And I think it's very interesting, a CNN contributor, of all people on CNN, to Randi Weingarten's face, called her out on it. Watch.
I am stunned at what you have said this week about your claiming to have wanted to reopen schools. I think you'll find that most parents believe you were the tip of the spear of school closures. There are numerous statements you made over the summer of 20, scaring people to death about the possibility of opening schools. And I hear no remorse whatsoever about the generational damage that's been done.
That was powerful. That's Scott Jennings. He's a CNN contributor. And he gave her no quarter. I mean, that was pretty blunt. And to her face, you could just see that discomfort, because I'm sure she thought if she's on CNN, she's protected. Right. But this guy's a parent. He saw what happened to his children, both of whom are special needs. And, Randi Weingarten can say all day that she trying to work on getting the schools closed. Here's some, we're going to put it up on your screen. This is what was going on. This is her saying, we cannot put the entire city at risk by allowing COVID rates to rise. Later, she made this comment. She says, Georgia has had a terrible school opening and its highest death toll today. Will its governor ever learn that COVID is serious? So she's begging Georgia to shut down. And then Randi Weingarten says states of Georgia and Florida have the highest COVID deaths today, and yet they are still in denial. This is the same Randi Weingarten who pretended that she was trying so hard to get the schools open. Here's a fact. Schools that did stay open actually did have low COVID rates because very few children ended up getting COVID, and even fewer died from it. But where there was intense lockdowns is where the biggest troubles happened. And that's not only true within the U.S. Sweden never locked down anything, had the lowest COVID numbers in the world. Israel and Italy both had some of the most harsh lockdowns and had some of the highest rates of COVID, which goes to what we've been told here on this show from some of our guests who have told us that when you isolate the healthy people rather than just the ones with the disease, you prevent having herd immunity, building up resistance, and you shut down the entire economy. So, boy, we've learned a lot. I hope we learned enough never to make that mistake again.
Yes.
All right, let's take a couple of questions.
All right, John Johnson is asking today, and he's referring to the illegal immigration numbers. Hey, Mike, of course they're down. Don't you think that they would have probably mostly to do with the fact that they're redefining illegal by redefining the status of an illegal immigrant?
Well, but the numbers actually are dramatically up. I mentioned earlier, 136,000 more than the year before, 2.4 million, which is the highest number on record. Now, keep in mind, those are the ones that we know about. We know lots of people across the border have no idea that they crossed the border because they didn't get checked in. We didn't wave at them as they ran right past the Border Patrol. So the numbers are probably on the low side, not the high side, given how many are coming. The number most recently this week was 10,000 a day streaming into the country illegally, and that's pretty substantial.
Lisa Gill is writing today, how does Trump get impeached 2 times and then nothing with Biden? How does that happen?
2 words, deep state. You hear that term and some people scoff at it and say, that sounds like some right-wing conspiracy. No, it isn't. There really is a deep state, and it's real, and it's pretty much in control. And it means people who are career bureaucrats, some elected, some employed, but a lot of people who are entrenched in the employment of government, whose vested interest is to make sure that nobody ever comes and rocks the boat. Because they thrive on the notion with the attitude. And I saw it in state government, people that would say, I was here when you came, I'll be here when you're gone. So, take your best shot, but we're the ones who are still going to be here. In some cases, they were right.
Right.
Because they'll be there 30 years. Most of us don't want to be there that long. We got to get to Kamala Harris this week because, we need her wisdom. And she was recently visiting with Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos, and she had some brilliant words of wisdom as to how we're going to foster our relationship with the Philippines.
Under your leadership, we have been able to continue to do the work that we have that is a priority around our mutual prosperity and security as it relates to the South China Sea, as it relates to what we must do in terms of continuing to work together through our Coast Guards. I was honored to go to Palawan. I went there after you and I met. That's right. Yeah. And met with the fishers there.
2 hours later.
That's great.
You just wonder if the president of the Philippines turns to his wife and says in a foreign language, what the heck is she talking about? What is she saying?
Yeah.
Pretty hard to understand. And of course, then she's speaking at a jobs fair, and she's talking about small business owners, because nobody understands small business like Kamala Harris, who has never in her life signed the front of a paycheck and met payroll. But here she is.
And when I speak with small business owners and entrepreneurs, some of our younger small business owners actually self-identify as entrepreneurs. They're small business owners also. But we'll go with whatever you like, small business owner or entrepreneurs.
I honestly think she probably thinks that when a person says they're a small business owner, they're a person under 5 feet 5 inches. That's what qualifies them as a small business. Because I don't think she has any clue.
Yeah.
None at all. All right, let's take a question or two. And
All
then
right. As you know, at the end of every live stream, we continue to look at questions from the live stream from the week before. We had some from last week I want to make sure we touch on. And Sean Pierce wrote us last week, can Trump get elected with so much hate directed at him?
Well, of course he can. And really the question is, will he? And that largely depends on whether voters will say, hey, this guy got railroaded horribly, and he deserves another 4 years, and the first 4 years he had were good for the country. Yeah, he said and did some things that probably rankled a lot of genteel people, but my gosh, if you're watching Joe Biden and you think that the way he treats people and the way he dismisses anybody who didn't vote for him, he doesn't even say that a person of color is actually black if they didn't vote for him. I mean, that's racist. So let's forget this stuff about, well, one is a nice gentleman and the other one is not. That's just not true. But one really helped this country and one's goofing it up in the worst kind of way.
Jay Luther is asking today, Governor, did you ever see Sarah Huckabee Sanders do a press conference at the White House? Only did 8 in a 200-day stretch, so probably not.
Did I?
Sure. Well, I don't know where the you is, whether that's directed at you, or did you ever see, just in general, did you ever see Sarah Huckabee Sanders do a press conference at the White House? Did 8 in a 200-day stretch. Not sure what he's referring to.
I have no idea, because she did a whole lot more than that. Now, near the end of her tenure, the president asked her to stop doing daily press briefings because he was sick of the way that they were dealing with her and the administration, and thought that they had turned it into a circus. And so he told her not to go back out there. Now, he still answered questions, and she still answered questions. Most people think the only time the press secretary is engaging with the press is at the podium. That is maybe, in Sarah's case, I know, that was probably 10% or less of her time. Most of it was the one-on-one where she was constantly having those press people who have offices and stations at the White House pop into her office and asking questions, and her getting the answers to them.
Right.
So that's a small part of it. I want to get to the debt ceiling because it's going to come up next Tuesday, I believe, is the date. The 9th. When is that? Is that Tuesday or Wednesday of next week? Let me look. That will be on Tuesday. Yes. Kevin McCarthy will meet with President Biden on Tuesday to talk about the debt ceiling. Now, just make sure that you understand something here. The House Republicans are the only ones who have a plan. They put a plan, they voted on it, and it passed the House. The Senate has done nothing. Joe Biden has done nothing. All Joe Biden has said, do unlimited debt ceiling, give me everything I want, and there is no negotiation. That's not the way government works. And it didn't work that way when Joe Biden was in the Senate, and he said it didn't. And he said we needed to have negotiations and conferences. So did Chuck Schumer. This week, here's Chuck Schumer's response.
These cuts, as we have pointed out as our hearings will, are so draconian. The American people don't want them, and we cannot. These are not even cuts. And this is not a plan. This is a hard right-wing wish list that everyone knows has no chance of passing.
There he goes. He's talking about how horrible it's going to be. And they made up lies. They said that veterans wouldn't get treated. The VA is totally not included in any of the House Republican plan. What they did say is that they will limit growth to federal agencies to 1% a year. Now, most families would be delighted if they got a 1% increase right now because they've got about an 8% decrease thanks to inflation. So there's been just complete dishonesty about this. We're not going to put up the article, but there's a very interesting article. It's a 320-page article on Limit, Save, Grow Act of 2023. You can go online. Look for yourself. Don't take my word for it. As they say, look it up. Before we close today, we've got to get to a couple of these. These are just amazing. And I'm going to skip down to this one. This is about Colorado. Their House of Representatives, 27 Democrats, voted against making indecent exposure to minors. Okay, got that? Indecent exposure to minors, a Class 6 felony. Watch.
These types of laws have been used to ban drag shows, to target individuals who use the restroom of the sex that they identify with, a public restroom, to charge them with felony charges.
No, that's not true. It's when a person who is an adult, who is a male, exposes himself indecently to little girls in a restroom. That's indecent exposure. And these Democrats in Colorado defend that, say, oh, that's okay. No, it isn't okay. Here's something I'd love to ask her and a lot of other of the people who think drag shows for kids is a great idea. Why is it that the drag queens want to put on performances for little kids 6 and 7 years old? Do you ever hear of a drag queen wanting to go to a nursing home and put on the performance for 70-year-olds? Ever? No. Why is it they're always wanting to do it in front of children? If it's such a great thing, do it for the old people who have nothing else to do.
Right.
They don't want to go there. I mean, it looks like they're recruiting. Last video of the day that we're going to show you, this is a so-called transgender influencer. I don't know who this guy influences. I worry about anyone he would influence. His name is James Rose. And he tells you that if you look at him and you see a man, then you're a bigot and a transphobe. This is what we're up against, folks, right here.
I love my presentation. I don't need your validation from it. I do not receive this. And I would really caution you about policing other people's gender expressions because it's just not your business. If you look at me and you see a man, that's your transphobia that you are projecting onto people like me, and you're just making the world less safe.
Actually, dude, when I see you, I don't really see a man. I'm not sure what I see, but when I think of men, it ain't looking at you. And I don't mean to be insulting, but if what you are and how you portray yourself, if that's manly, forget about it. That's what I would say. Hey, be sure to leave your questions in the comments section. Be sure to hit the like button. And if you had a good time today, sure you did, consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost to 1 million subscribers. And 2 out of 3 of you watching right now aren't even subscribed. So just think about what happens if you click that little button. We could break YouTube before the end of the day and hit 1 million. So I hope you will.